Welcome back to another season of DJB Outdoors, and it is mid-October. Actually, it's almost we're almost to the end of October. I think it's October 23rd today or 24th. One of the questions that I get asked the most is, will you ever do a video specific about whitetail setup, your preseason planning, your scouting, what goes into all the work that you do prior to whitetail season. Typically the whitetail videos that we do get the most views, and I think a lot of you follow along specifically for the whitetail videos. So because I get asked that so much, I thought, you know what, this year I am going to do a video specifically about prep. There's not going to be, I might use some kill shots from past seasons, but really there's no hunting involved when it comes to this video. This is my first attempt maybe to do a bit of a instructional video, but really at the end of the day it's just me sharing some of my knowledge, some of my experience. Take that for what it's worth, but because I've had so many of you reach out to me and ask for something like this is why I'm doing it. And I enjoy telling stories, and I enjoy sharing information. So here we go, and I'll preface what I'm going to do today, because the video is going to cover off a few things. But the way we're going to start this is over the last month I've been heavy into moose hunting. Lucky enough to get a moose draw this year. And I've been hunting some areas that I don't typically hunt whitetails in. But this year, I had put up a trail camera in one spot specific for moose. And on the first day that I put the camera up, I got a picture of a giant whitetail. Haven't got a picture of that buck since. But if I got a picture of that buck in late September, it means that he's living close by. So today, my plan, as you can see, I got a ladder stand with me. I have a fairly good idea of where I want to put it, at least the general area. So the plan is to go out and find a spot to put this ladder stand. It's a stand that I'm going to put up, and I intend to hunt all day sits come November. So that's the plan today. Let's go out to the woods, and I'm going to show you what kind of area I'm looking for to put this stand up, maybe some other spots as well, maybe pop up a blind or two, but I'm really after that one buck in this area. I'm not going to focus all my efforts on one buck this year. I've done that in the past, and not to say I don't enjoy doing that, but there is some other areas that I know other big bucks are. So it's going to be a focus this year on different bucks, but this area today we're going to go in and I'm going to show you what I look for, and we'll get this sucker popped up, and hopefully you guys see what I'm aiming at, the type of terrain I'm looking at, clues, signs. Let's get at it. Okay, so I've come back. I'm quite a ways back in the bush. Now, as I said in the opening, we're going to cover off a few things. But generally speaking, when I'm hunting deer in November in the rut, I'm looking for a couple of key things. First and foremost, I'm looking to make sure that there are does in the area. That is, if you don't have does, if you're not hunting where the does are, where the does are feeding, where the does are traveling, your chances of killing a big buck are very, very, very much lower. So you need to have does in the area. That's almost a must. Once you find the does, and in this spot here, I've had a trail camera up now for a couple of weeks. I have several does, and when I'm looking here, I'm looking for tracks. I'm looking for really travel routes and transition areas. I don't want to hunt where the does are bedding. Now, in this particular spot here, because it's so far back in the bush, they could bed really anywhere. But generally, And as you're going to see where I put the camera up, and you can kind of see around me, it's fairly open here. Even though we're way back in the bush, it's fairly open. They're not going to bed in the daytime real close to wide open areas like this. So why here? Why am I stopped here? Why am I looking to put a tree stand up here? Well, it's pretty simple. I've got a lot of daytime pictures of does and younger bucks moving through this area. Right behind me, I have a swamp or a beaver pond that goes all the way back out and around this way to the east, and then down to the south and back to the north. The deer are going to use this type of area as a travel corridor. This year is dry, so they're going to be coming to the water. They're going to want to be close to water. And as we near the rut, you're going to see bucks that are going to travel up and down the edges of these beaver ponds and swamps, with the big bush to the south and the big bush on the other side to the north. And all they're doing is they're traveling where it's easy to travel, where they can smell the does, but yet they have cover. Big bucks want cover. Yes, we've all seen big bucks running across the middle of a wide open field in the middle of November. That does happen. It doesn't happen very often though. And if you want to kill bucks, mature bucks, year after year after year, you have to get back and you have to get into an area where big bucks are comfortable. That's what I look for. I look for open areas that the bucks feel comfortable either traveling into, along, or through. So that's what I've picked here today. I know there's a lot of deer in the area. I do have a big buck on camera about a quarter of a mile away. I know he's living here somewhere because that's a picture in September. They're not traveling. They shouldn't be traveling very far in September. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to put my stand up, and then from the stand, I'm going to show you guys what and why I put, or what I'm looking for, and then why I put the stand there. All right, so I've got the stand up. I'm in the stand. Really like my view. So I'm going to show you what I see from where I'm sitting and why I think this is the spot. So to give you a sense of what's going on, south is that way, right that way. North is this way, and on obviously west that way, and east out that way. I am only going to hunt this stand on either a south or a southeast wind. Southwest wind won't work because the main reason for putting the stand in this spot is, as you can see, like this, here's the swamp behind me, big beaver pond. Now, of course, when everything freezes over, they'll cross just about anywhere. But right now, with it being wet still, all the way up through here, right down through here, are two big beaver dams, old beaver dams. And for the most part, the animals are crossing from way back in there. They're coming across here, and then, I don't know if you guys can see it, so I'll show you where I parked the quad. So the quad should be right there. So the quad is sitting on an old cut line. And the animals use that cut line to travel north and south. And that line comes right basically to the edge of this beaver pond. And so the only way for them to get across in the summertime is to use those two dam crossings right out here. What else? The other things that I like about this is, when you look back out to the west, again, that swamp goes all the way back over there. But the deer they'll travel along the edge of this all the way along here. And, obviously they're gonna be traveling way up in the bush as well, and there's going to be deer that are going to be up in there that you're not going to see. But when you're trying to piece together where you want to sit, first of all, you need to be in a spot where you can get shots. Being in too tight of an area, too thick of an area, very difficult to get shots. So you want to expose yourself into an area where you can get multiple shooting lanes, multiple shots, and because we're rifle hunting, at some distance, 100 yards, 150 yards, 200 yards. So a spot like this, this is why I choose this spot. Again, there's a pile of deer in here. The does are traveling on that north-south line, and they're crossing those beaver dams. You might ask, okay, well, what about scrape lines and rub lines? Yeah, those things are important. And if I was strictly bow hunting, I would be using rub lines and scrape lines. I would be putting up stands, 20, 30, 40 yards from major scrapes. And I'm not saying that can't work during rifle season. It absolutely can. But as the season goes on, bucks will tend to leave rub and scrape lines in the pursuit of does and when they're with does. So scrape lines are great early season. They can work throughout the season. But for me, personally speaking, I prefer travel routes and transition areas where big bucks are comfortable exposing themselves in the search of does. That's what I'm looking for. Another thing that I like about beaver ponds and swamps like this, again, as I spoke about earlier, on dry years, animals need water. All animals need water. Deer need water, moose need water, elk need water. And there is not a whole lot of spots where water is still holding. A lot of the old spots have dried up throughout July, August, and September. There's still a lot of water in these beaver ponds. One of the coolest deer that I ever shot was a big double drop tine deer that I shot right on the edge of a river, and I had put a lot of time trying to figure out where that deer was living, and in the end I just decided, I'm going to set up on a spot where I think they cross. And lo and behold, I think it was the first or second time I sat there that season, that buck came down to the river to get a drink, and that's where he died. So beaver ponds, they're, especially a long series of beaver ponds, they're great travel routes, and they provide water and feed for all the animals in the area. So that's my approach on how I would go about setting up a brand new spot. Now, I want to make sure that everyone understands that we're near the end of October. This type of setup, a lot of my other setups, they are setups that are geared and aimed towards hunting deer during the November rut. If I was going to hunt deer, say back in the beginning of September, mid-September, late September, the setups would be a lot different. I'd be hunting on the edge of food sources. If I was going to hunt in mid-October to late October, I probably would be setting up closer to scrape lines and rub lines. But these types of setups, because I do so much hunting for elk and moose and other species, these types of setups are for rifle hunting in November during the rut. That's what we're aiming to do here. A couple more things that I want to touch on before I close out the video, but that setup there that you just saw, and similar to some of the setups from last year, because last year was a brand new area that I hunted in as well. Little bit different than what I'm used to, and if somebody had to ask me, what would your number one type of location be, for setting up during November? It would be hands down setting up on either a cut line or a fence line. And the reason for that, and you guys have seen this lots over the last several years of whitetail videos on our channel. The reason for that is similar to some of the reasons that I already discussed. When it comes to hunting mature deer, like I said, you can catch them out in the middle of an open field, once in a while. It does happen. It'll happen in the early season. It will happen during the rut if they're on a doe and a doe pulls them out. But for the most part, those types of things, especially during the rut, are kind of one-offs. They don't happen very often. And so when you're playing the odds, if you want to keep the odds in your favor, hunt in an area where you can consistently see, mature deer, not just once in a while. And that is in the bush where they're comfortable and they're exposing themselves, to an opening for just a short period of time. A cut line or a fence line, they can zip across that in a second and a half. Try and pick a cut line that is somewhat, gives you a decent chance to see them get set up and take a shot. But they would much rather cross a narrow cut line than cutting across an open field. I'll take that with me till the end of my days, and it's just that for me is hands down the number one area that I would pick, and you guys have seen that it does work. Two more things I want to talk about. The first is trail cameras. We all use trail cameras, and trail cameras have really changed the way we hunt. They change, our ability to track deer and keep an inventory of deer out there. Here's what I've learned from trail cameras, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. Just because you don't have a big buck on camera doesn't mean a big buck is not in the area. If you're seeing big tracks, if you're seeing big rubs, if the sign is there, usually means you have a mature deer, even if you don't have one on camera. And I say that because as we evolve as hunters, I believe animals are evolving as well. And there have been numerous times where I will not get a big buck on camera until second, third week of November. And I really, some of you might think I'm a little bit nuts here, but I really believe that bucks, especially if you're putting those cameras in the same spot year after year after year, they know where those cameras are. And even though they might not know what they are, they know that they associate it with humans and they stay away from it, particularly in the early season. So yeah, I use cameras just as much as everybody else. I'm a huge believer in them. I use them to track inventory. I use them to pattern animals. They really have changed the game for me just as much as anybody else. But just because I don't have a big buck on camera doesn't mean I won't hunt an area. So just wanted to point that out. The other thing about trail cameras is, especially when it comes to deer, when I put up a camera in June or July, I will not check that camera for 3 months. That's just what I do. Going in and checking your cameras every week, every 2 weeks, every month, whatever it may be. The more you're in there, the more you're spreading your scent, and I stay away from doing that. I don't want to educate deer. I don't want to push them out of the area, so I will not check those cameras very often. During the rut, a little bit different. I think you can get away with that a little bit more, but especially during July, August, September, you don't want to push those big deer out of their core areas. Last thing I want to talk about, and this is maybe one of the most important things: access to and from your stands or your blinds or your hunting locations. I have changed the way I do things over the last several years, and one of the things that I have stopped doing as much as possible is walking long distances into my stands. So one, make sure that you're approaching your stand from the downwind side. You don't want to go into an area. I won't hunt an area where the wind is not in my favor, and I won't approach my stand if the wind is blowing from me towards my stand. I just don't do it. If you can, use a quad, an ATV, or a vehicle to get as close to your stands or your blinds as possible. Deer and animals, they're not scared of a vehicle or an ATV like they are of somebody walking through the woods. They've gotten used to vehicles. They know that vehicles are on the highways, on the roads, ATVs are on the trails all year long, and so they've gotten somewhat used to those things. But somebody walking down a trail, walking down a cut line or a fence line, that's what a mature deer will not tolerate. So access in to and from your stands is so critical. It's one of the most important things about your hunting day. So again, approach from the downwind side, and if you can shorten that walk to as short as possible distance as you can, and I guarantee you will have more success than a long mile walk into your stand where you're spreading your scent around everywhere. That's it. That's all I got to offer. There will be hopefully 2 or 3 whitetail videos coming in the next few weeks as we get through November. Hopefully you learned something, picked up something. You know, if not, appreciate you watching. But if there's anything in here you can use, certainly hope that you apply it. And I certainly wish you guys all the luck out there this year as you search for your next big deer, whatever it may be.